Hey there, hope you're well. I want to talk to you today about the best cities for tech jobs in 2024. Just to let you know, I did some source data is from a few manual searches I did on LinkedIn. I looked on the major metro areas around the world, and I chose LinkedIn because there's an international talent focus there. It's where companies and recruiters go looking for international top performers and are willing to give them work visa, job sponsorship. This is applicable for all tech jobs, but the way I did it was to search for a cloud DevOps tool that is super popular, used by all serious companies. It's called Terraform. So wherever you find this, it should scale with cloud DevOps engineers and also developers, and generally with tech roles as well. And there's a little caveat warning that some countries will have a greater or lesser proliferation of use of agencies, so just something to bear in mind. However, I think the data is really good. Let's take a look. By the way, give this video a like please, and also subscribe to the channel. We're quite new and growing and getting some great support. Hope to have you along for the ride. So I'm going to show you two slides, and this one very quickly, it's the same data. You can see on the left I chose a variety of top tech hubs around the world. I didn't include South America, Latin America. I don't know much about that region. I forgot to include Australasia, and I didn't include China and Russia as they're not using LinkedIn. But we have everything else. I chose what I thought were the top tech hubs, and just a basic sort in this yellow column here. This is just the cities sorted by number of jobs, and the only remark I want to make is that you may be surprised, not my Indian friends, but my non-Indian friends may be surprised like myself, that Indian metro areas actually lead the world in terms of number of IT roles. So that is pretty amazing. I knew that a lot was happening there. I did not know just how many jobs there were there. That is super interesting. So I thought I would remark on that. It is super amazing, and obviously that number can get even higher. It would be interesting to see just where that goes, that number. So let's look at the next slide, which has got a lot more meaning to it. What I did was I took the population in these metro areas and I did a ratio of jobs to population. So what this will tell you is, now most of these cities I chose, they're already tech cities, so it's all relative, but the top half of the table is going to show the cities that especially are massive tech hubs. They've got a lot of tech jobs even for the population that they have, and the ones to the bottom are going to be the ones that aren't so big tech hubs, that they have smaller, fewer roles, tech roles, even for the population that they have. So what you'll see is that the top quarter of this table are the giants. The next quarter are still very good tech hubs. The ones in the next quarter are the ones that are still okay. They're still tech hubs. You can still have a good tech career there probably, and the ones at the bottom are disappointing, and we're going to go through these. So I got some remarks here. So you see here in general USA and Europe dominating this table. That is kind of expected, and I'll come back to that because there's some surprises there still. What surprised me a little bit was that Middle East is in the bottom half of this table. I mean, I know that they would not rank as good as USA and Europe. Tel Aviv has always been a tech hub, and being in the middle, this is a good tech hub. That doesn't surprise me so much, but I was quite surprised to see Abu Dhabi, Dubai and Riyadh right at the bottom. So this implies to me that they are actually not good parts of the world at the moment to have a tech career. You're going to have a lot of difficulty finding a role, and also finding a new role, moving into a new role if you're there. So that's going to affect, in my opinion, your career progression, and also if you're looking for a bump in salary when you move as well. So I was quite surprised that these cities I've heard a lot about are not really great hubs for tech. Possibly they're great hubs in other respects, in non-tech engineering and in other respects, but at least in tech I don't think they're really there yet. So I was a bit disappointed. Another remark I want to make about Asia is the top tech hub in Asia is Singapore. My data confirms this. However, my data does confirm that with a ratio of about 40, that Singapore is about half of some of the newer tech hubs in Europe, and less even so than the more established ones like London, etc. So yeah, if you go to Singapore, you're going to maybe struggle a little bit for tech career progression, especially when the economy is not doing so great like right now. You're going to find it more difficult to find good roles and to move. The money may not be so good, but of course you may want to go there for other solid lifestyle reasons as well, which I can completely understand. The weather, it's in Asia, the low crime rate, things like that. Tokyo is kind of the next biggest one. It's not as good as Singapore, but that doesn't surprise me because Tokyo, being a capital city, it's always been a financial and a legal capital, so it doesn't really surprise me so much. Hong Kong, Bangkok, very, very disappointing. Seoul, very disappointing. I'm wondering if these countries are even attracting international talent, because by the looks of it, they're not. Very, very low numbers. Super disappointing. I could not recommend that you even try and get a tech career there, I've got to say. I'm very disappointed. I hope that they can improve. Let's go back to Europe now. The big, well, not surprise to me is Zurich and Amsterdam. I'd already heard good things about that, but what surprised me was Bucharest, Krakow in Poland. You got some other Polish cities as well, like Warsaw, Wrocław as well. Wow. These are really got big tech hubs, and that surprised me. And I've heard a lot of people say that these have a very low cost of living, especially Poland. So in Poland, for example, it's still affordable for you to afford a property. Let's compare that to Amsterdam, where it's almost impossible. So yeah, some of these newer European cities, okay, the salaries are going to be lower, but the cost of living is going to be lower. You may be able to bank more to afford property. And hey, if you go there as a European citizen, you could even get a remote job in another part of Europe, for example, in a similar time zone, and you'll be exploiting a big differential there between your salary and your cost of living. So super interesting. I did not know that Bucharest was doing so well. I did not know that these Polish cities, I'd heard a little bit that they were doing so well. I mean, look, they're ranking the same as like Austin and Boston in America, Stockholm, which is more established. Paris is a capital city. It's still very good for a tech career, although not as good as, say, Amsterdam or Zurich or San Francisco. But, you know, it's a capital city, so that's not surprising. Still very good place. Munich and Berlin, you know, Berlin is one of the leading places in Western Europe, if not the leading. And just because it's in the middle doesn't mean that it's bad. It just may not be as high ratio as some of the others, but these are all still great places to be. I was actually a little bit surprised that, you know, you've got Berlin here, but where's the other German city that I mentioned, which is Munich? And yeah, you know, in Munich, 400 and something jobs, Berlin 400 jobs. Munich surprised me. I thought Berlin would be way ahead of Munich, but to be honest, they're about the same. So super interesting. And again, all of these countries here are all good places to have a tech career. It's only when you get down here it starts to get a bit disappointing. You might think New York is not that good for a tech career because it's a bit lower down this table, but look, New York is again, it's a major, huge city. It's still, and if you look on the number of jobs there, it's still super high. So it's definitely not a bad place. There's still plenty of liquidity there to find a good role. So yeah, super interesting. I would say the same for Tokyo as well. You know, so although it had this bad ratio, it's not as good for tech. By sheer volume, you'd probably be okay there. But I would say as an international, it's probably not a great place to go looking for a tech career. And if you happen to be from New York, I'm sure you can have a great tech career. But if you're not from New York, I wouldn't recommend going there. You're probably better off going to Boston or Austin, or even if you're you know, really wanting to go to a bigger city, go to San Francisco. I think it will be very interesting to see what happens with Indian cities like Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad. Will there be other Indian cities that I didn't cover here that are starting to emerge that could even one day attract international talent to go to those Indian cities? That would be super interesting. But yeah, some surprising European cities, disappointing Middle East and Asia, I would say. But I hope this gives you a good idea of where to go. If you're from outside Europe, if you're from outside America, I think the American cities are kind of obvious, right? There's the big ones and the middle ones, but in Europe, I think the surprising ones are Poland and other Central and European cities that you might want to consider. I think there's some great opportunities there. So listen, I hope you enjoyed this. Please give it a like if you did and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye.